All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Happy Sunday. And originally, I had a plan to do a video this morning talking about the mock game last night in detail. I was going to do a video where I got into the play-by-play and the specifics of the way the mock game went. But I don't think there's really any point in me doing that. The video I did last night basically covered everything that there is to cover. So I don't really have a lot to add to the video that I made last night. So go watch that video if you want to. The thing is, the Seahawks don't really do the mock game anymore. They do a mock pregame, and then the game is just like practice pretty much. So there really isn't a lot of play-by-play to get into because they don't play a structured game at all. And under Carroll they did, so things are a little different now. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So instead of talking about this, because there really isn't anything else to say, I want to wrap up our look at the Pro Football Focus rankings this offseason because we got a couple more positions to look at. And this is going to be one of the few areas where the Seahawks come out looking pretty good. And I've taken Pro Football Focus to task a little bit for not giving the defending champions their flowers for what they did last season and what they, I believe, are poised to do this season. So I should at least give them some credit when I see something that they actually seem to get right. And I don't know if this is right or not. I will acknowledge that. This is certainly debatable, but it is in the ballpark. And that's more than I can say for a lot of things in this series this year. Again, I'm not sitting here demanding that a 10-win Seahawks team that either barely made the playoffs or barely missed the playoffs, I'm not sitting here demanding that that team get a little bit more respect. We're talking about the defending champions here, and I feel like that is worthy of some degree of, how should I put this? Worthy of some degree of respect and not getting so easily dismissed. So we've got the secondary here. We've got the cornerbacks. We've got the safeties. So we're going to start with the cornerbacks, and this is our best showing of the year. And you don't really have to scroll down very much to get to Devon Witherspoon because he's right there at number 1. According to Pro Football Focus, Devon Witherspoon is the number 1 corner in football. So, sit on that one for a little bit. That is a lot of praise for a very special player. And if you read the write-up, you can see why they think that about Witherspoon. He was their highest graded cornerback on the season. He mostly played on the outside in 2025, which was new. He was still valuable in the slot as well. He had 13 quarterback pressures and a sack in the Super Bowl, and is also an elite run defender. So basically, what they're telling you is they believe he's the best because he's the most versatile. He can do everything. There might be some guys that are better in coverage than him, like Pat Surtain, but nobody is doing the whole package the way that Devon Witherspoon is. So, number 1, it's nice to see at least somebody on this team get flowers. And Witherspoon is, I believe, the only player to really get a lot of love from Pro Football Focus in this series other than Leonard Williams. Number 2, keep this in mind when you're trying to figure out how to feel about the contract he's going to get in the near future, because it's going to be a lot of money. Just keep this in mind. Nobody can do it like him. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the number 1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. So, yeah, there are two players on this team that have gotten proper respect from Pro Football Focus, JSN and Witherspoon. Now, we've had other players appear on lists, of course, because their lists are very lengthy. They go through 32 players. But Witherspoon and JSN are the only two guys that they seem to acknowledge are two of the best players in the league at their positions. And look, those are the two probably best players on the team. I do think those are probably the two guys that really stand out. Maybe you put Williams or Murphy in the conversation as well, but I think that in terms of actual quality of the player, Boone and JSN are probably your top two dogs as of right now. So, hey, I appreciate that. Now, you go through the rest of the list, you're not going to find any more Seahawks. And you also will not find Reek Woolen, who's the guy we lost in the offseason. So, I mean, I like Josh Jobe. I can't really say I think he should be a top corner in the league. I don't think he's there yet. I think he could get there, but he's got to play the whole season and he's got to play effectively. And it's going to be really hard because he's the guy that teams are going to pick on a little bit because they don't want to throw at Witherspoon and they don't want to throw at Eamon Worry and they don't want to throw at, I would say, Julian Love as well, probably because his coverage numbers when he played last year were really, really good. So that is going to be kind of the guy who gets singled out. So it's going to be hard, but I think he can do it. I think he's a good player. He just needs to have a full season of good quality play. He could possibly be a lower tier top 32 corner. But that's really all we got here and makes sense. Now I want to go over to the safeties. And this one's really interesting, right? Because you got safeties, but you've also got a lot of players on this list that aren't really safeties, including a Seahawk. And I think you guys already know who I'm talking about before I even say it. So let's go through this list here. You got the usual suspects at the top: Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James, Xavier McKinney, Minka. I don't know if Minka is still a top 4 safety, but maybe. Brian Branch, Antoine Winfield. Feels like Winfield should be higher, by the way. But nobody in the top 10 for the Seahawks. And you keep going. You keep going. Nick Eamon-Worry, number 14. And you look at the write-up here. The only thing that they're really holding against Eamon-Worry is consistency, because there were some games where he played brilliantly, but there were also a lot of games, like almost half of the games that he played last year, he had a below replacement level grade. So by PFF's own metric, it's just a question of him being able to be a net positive player in most or all of the games that he plays, rather than having games where he's the best player on the field and other games where he's a liability. Now, whether or not he's a liability, that's obviously subjective. I don't know if I ever really consider Eamon-Worry to be a liability on the field, but coverage was an issue for him at various points last season, and that's something that's going to come with time. So 14 is probably about the right idea here. The ESPN list, the coaches, scouts, GMs list, had him a lot higher than this. I think this is probably a little more reflective of reality. That's kind of my sense. But I think we're going places this year. I believe that Nick Eamon-Worry by the end of this year will be considered one of the best safeties in football, insofar as he is a safety, because really he's more of a nickel corner. But that goes for a few different players on this list, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second here. But I believe that he's going to take big strides, but I do think this ranking is probably about it's the right idea, right? Now, you go down the list a little bit more, you're going to find another Seahawk with Julian Love. So Love has the 5th highest overall PFF grade for a safety in the 3-year span he's been with the Seahawks. Coverage has been excellent. Love's ranking is most explained by his substandard work against the run last year. So what this really comes down to is the fact that he got injured and only played about half the season last year. So if Julian Love puts together a healthy season in 2026, he'll probably be in the top 10 or at least top 12 next year. I think he's clearly good enough for that. I think he's pretty clearly that caliber of player in this defense. He just has to go out there and do it. So I think Love is better than this, but the injury knocks him down. I get it. I understand. By the way, Kobe Bryant was 2 spots lower at 19. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? We watched the Seahawks over the last couple years. Julian Love is clearly a better player than Kobe Bryant. Clearly. There's no universe where they should be basically right next to each other on this list. But they are. And I get it, but I don't believe it reflects the reality of how good Love is. Now, that's it for the Seahawks, by the way. There's no Ty Okada, which you wouldn't expect. Ty Okada hasn't done enough. But the other thing to keep in mind here is that there are a lot of safeties on this list, but there are also a decent number of slot corners as well. And there are some quote unquote safeties that play a lot in the slot because that position's really kind of become fluid. It's really difficult to pigeonhole a player as a safety anymore because so many of them come up to play the nickel role. Like, you take a look at this list, they got 3 Rams here. They got Cameron Kinchens at 10, Cam Curl at 12, and then they've got Quentin Lake at 30, which is really weird to me because I think Quentin Lake is clearly the best of those 3 players. But the point I'm trying to make is it's kind of become the standard that you have a lot of safeties that are only part-time or barely safeties at all. And Nicky Manwar is certainly a good example of that, but there are some other examples here as well. All right, so that's it. I think that's all Pro Football Focus is going to do. I don't think they're going to do kickers and punters. So I just wanted to go ahead and wrap up our look at that because I don't really have too much else to talk about right now. See you guys later. Go Hawks. See you guys later. I imagine I'll have at least one more video to make at some point later today. No practice though, so we will see if anything happens. Go Hawks.